Happy Hero. One morning, Thomas saw Percy and Hero at Knapford Station. "Good morning," he tooted loudly. "Good morning," Percy peeped. But Hero didn't toot a greeting. "You seem sad, Hero," Thomas said. "Maybe a little," Hero replied, as he steamed quietly out of the station. Thomas met Charlie at the docks. "Hero's feeling sad," he told Charlie. "Can you cheer him up with a riddle?" "Hero," Charlie called loudly, "what has 4 legs but never walks?" "I don't know, Charlie," Hero replied. "A table," laughed Charlie. But Hero didn't smile as he slowly puffed away. Thomas asked why Hero was feeling sad. "I miss my home," Hero replied. "I could puff along quietly there. I'm an older engine, so I like to puff along quietly." But Thomas didn't listen to Hero. He thought he knew how to cheer him up. Thomas took Hero to the hollow tree tunnel. Hero smiled when he heard the birds singing. But Thomas didn't listen to the birds. "This will make you happy," he said, as he raced along the tunnel. Hero was tired. "I just want to puff along quietly," he said. But Thomas had another idea. Thomas took Hero to Misty Island. Hero smiled when he saw the sea. But Thomas didn't look at it. "Come on," Thomas said, as he raced along the bumpy tracks. "I just want to puff along quietly," Hero said. But Thomas didn't listen. At the logging station, Hero smiled when he saw some joby logs. "There must be joby trees we can visit," he said. But Thomas wasn't listening. "I want this to stop," Hero said tiredly. "I'm sorry," Thomas replied. "I thought I could make you happy, but instead I've made you unhappy." Thomas tooted softly as he realized where he had gone wrong. "Hero, you told me what makes you happy, but I didn't listen. Would you puff along quietly with me now?" he asked gently. "Of course, Thomas." Hero smiled. "I would be happy to." First, Thomas took Hero to look at the sea. "This is beautiful," Hero said. "It's just like home." "Can I take you somewhere else to puff along quietly?" Thomas asked. "Of course, Thomas." Hero smiled. Then Thomas took Hero to the hollow tree tunnel. Hero smiled as birds landed on him. "Can I take you somewhere else to puff along quietly?" Thomas asked. "Of course you can," Hero said eagerly. Thomas took Hero to see where the joby trees grew. Hero gasped when he saw the magnificent trees. "This is wonderful! I am very happy," Hero told Thomas, and he smiled his biggest smile of the day. "You are a very kind friend, Thomas," Hero told him. "Thank you for this special day." Thomas beamed from buffer to buffer. Then the 2 engines puffed slowly and happily together back to the engine sheds. The end. The Tall Friend. A new safari park was opening and all the engines had important jobs to do. Percy and Edward's trucks were full of food for the animals. "I'm taking the tallest animal to the park," puffed Thomas excitedly. The other engines tried to guess what it could be. It was a giraffe. All the engines wheezed with wonder. Thomas couldn't wait to show the children the tallest animal on Sodor. "You must wait for the giraffe keeper," said Cranky. But Thomas was in too much of a rush and he puffed away. Thomas puffed happily along with the giraffe, but it wasn't long before they came to a low bridge. "Sit down, Mr. Giraffe," Thomas chuffed. But the giraffe didn't want to sit down, so they couldn't fit under the bridge. Thomas heard a whistle. It was Gordon. "Out of the way!" Gordon tooted crossly. "You must get the keeper. The giraffe will do what he tells him." "No, I can manage," puffed Thomas, and he reversed into a siding. Then Edward chuffed up with his trucks full of rosy red apples. The apples gave Thomas an idea. Perhaps the giraffe would get sleepy and sit down if he ate some apples. The giraffe liked Edward's apples. He ate and ate and ate, but he didn't sit down. Edward was upset that all his apples had been eaten. "You must go back and get the keeper, Thomas," Edward puffed crossly. Thomas was worried. The fat controller was waiting for him, and he still couldn't get under the bridge. Just then, Percy puffed along with a truck full of leaves. Thomas thought the giraffe might sit down if he ate some of the leaves. The giraffe loved the leaves. He munched and munched until there were none left. And then, finally, he sat down and closed his eyes. "He's asleep," peeped Thomas. "At last, we can go under the bridge to the safari park." Thomas clickety-clacked along the track and under the bridge all the way to the safari park. The fat controller was there, and he was cross. There were no apples and no leaves for the animals to eat, and the tallest animal was fast asleep. "I'm sorry, sir," wheezed Thomas. "I should have waited for the keeper." Thomas puffed his fastest to fetch the keeper and take him to the park, and then he chuffed away to get more apples and more leaves. When Thomas finally puffed back into the safari park, the giraffe was wide awake. He heard Thomas toot and stretched out his long neck to his new friend. "Welcome to Sodor, Mr. Giraffe," peeped Thomas happily. "It's a wonderful place to live." The end.